All right, let's put on our detective hats. Today, we're cracking one of the biggest mysteries out there. Why on earth people do what they do at work. It's time to dive in.
You've seen this happen, right? Your best person suddenly seems to be just phoning it in, or a team that used to click is now just full of friction. Well, these aren't just random events, they're clues, and we're about to learn how to read them. So let's pop open the case file. You see things like high turnover, people calling in sick all the time, productivity taking a nosedive. But here's the secret. Those aren't the real problems. They're just the symptoms. Our job is to dig a little deeper and find out what's really going on. And to solve this case, every good detective needs the right toolkit. For us, that tool is a fascinating field called organizational behavior. You can just think of it as the science of people at work, and it's designed to help us make sense of all these puzzles.
Okay, let's open up that toolkit. First things first, we're going to use organizational behavior to get the lay of the land, to see the entire puzzle board.
So what is organizational behavior, really? Well, in simple terms, it's the study of what people do at work. But it's so much more than just looking at an org chart. It's about understanding individuals, how they act in groups, and that whole complex web of interactions that makes a workplace tick.
All right, clue number one we need to look for is attitude. And I don't just mean being positive or negative. An attitude is like an inner compass that secretly guides almost everything we do. Let's break down how it works.
You've got to see the chain reaction here. It's like a set of dominoes. It almost always starts with a thought or a belief. That's the cognitive part. That thought then sparks a feeling or an emotion. That's the affective part. And finally, that feeling pushes us toward an intention to do something, the behavioral part. Think, feel, do. And if you can understand that sequence, you can start to get really good at predicting what people might do next.
But here's a fun little twist. What happens when what we do doesn't line up with what we believe? We get this weird, uncomfortable mental tension. It's called cognitive dissonance. You know, like if you think of yourself as a super healthy person, but then you find yourself eating a whole pint of ice cream, that little nagging feeling, that's it. And we humans hate that feeling. We will do almost anything to get rid of it, either by changing what we're doing or by changing what we believe.
Let's move on to our second clue, personality. This is all about our fundamental wiring. It's the reason why you can have two different people in the exact same situation and have them react in completely different ways. The Big Five model is basically a decoder ring for personality. It gives us a map across 5 key areas. Now, they're all important, but I want you to zoom in on that one in bold, conscientiousness. Why? Because study after study shows it's the single best predictor of how well someone will do in their job. It's not about being the smartest person in the room, it's about being responsible, dependable, and seeing things through. That's a superpower in any role. Here's a really crucial personality question for you. Do you feel like you're the captain of your own ship, or more like a passenger getting tossed around by the waves? People who feel like they're in charge of their own destiny, the ones with an internal locus of control, they tend to be way more engaged, more satisfied, and more proactive at work. It's a huge deal.
And of course, we can't forget emotional intelligence, or EI. This is all about being smart with feelings, not just yours, but everyone else's too. You know, the ability to read the room, to manage your own reactions, that isn't just a soft skill. In today's world, especially in a team, it's an absolute superpower. Okay, get ready, because this next clue is a major plot twist in our investigation. We all like to think we see the world as it really is, right? Objectively. Well, the truth is we don't. Not even close. We see everything through our own personal filter.
So, let's play out a super common scenario. A coworker, we'll call him Alex, misses a deadline on a project you're both working on.
Just take a second. Be honest with yourself. What's your immediate gut reaction? What's the story you tell yourself about why Alex missed that deadline? Go ahead and lock in your answer. Okay, I'm willing to bet that your first thought had something to do with Alex himself. Maybe that he's lazy, or disorganized, or just doesn't care. That is a classic, textbook example of something called the fundamental attribution error. We are all hardwired to blame other people's failures on their character while we totally underestimate factors in their situation, like, say, a sudden family emergency. This is so critical because it shows how our perception literally creates the reality we experience at work.
And our brains love to take these little mental shortcuts that lead us down the wrong path all the time. We assume other people think just like we do. We stereotype. Or we let one really great thing about someone, the halo effect, blind us to everything else. These are the kinds of mental traps that every good detective and every good manager has to learn to watch out for.
So, we've gathered our clues, right? We've looked at attitudes, personality, and the tricky business of perception. Now it's time to put it all together. This is where we figure out how all this knowledge actually turns into action that can make a real difference.
And here's the real payoff for all this detective work. When you finally understand the why behind someone's actions, you gain the incredible ability to influence the how. You can stop just reacting to problems and start proactively building a better, more productive environment.
So here it is, the manager's playbook. Positive reinforcement, that's easy. You reward the behavior you want to see more of. Now listen closely, because this next one trips everyone up. Negative reinforcement is not punishment. Punishment is when you add something bad, like giving someone a formal warning. Negative reinforcement is when you take away something bad. For example, say your team hates filling out weekly progress reports. You could say, hey, if we hit our big goal by Friday, we can skip the reports this week. You're encouraging good work by removing something they don't like. See the difference?
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? It's so simple, but so powerful. You can talk all day about how much you value teamwork, but if the only bonuses you give out are for individual top performers, well, what behavior are you really rewarding? People will always follow the rewards. You have to make sure your actions line up with your words.
So let's pack up our detective's toolkit. What are the big takeaways? First, pay close attention to attitudes. They're like breadcrumbs leading you to future behavior. Second, use what you know about personality to get the right people into the right jobs where they can really shine. Third, never ever forget that people react to what they perceive as reality, not reality itself. And finally, you can actively shape behavior by being smart about how you manage the consequences.
And with that, our investigation is wrapped. It turns out the great workplace mystery isn't so mysterious after all, not when you know how to read the code. You have the tools now. You know what to look for. So the only question left is, what will you see differently tomorrow?